What is going on, Jet fans? Matt O'Leary back with episode 260 of the Just Jets podcast. Today, we're going to get into new details on the Aaron Rodgers decision from the New York Jets. We'll get your voicemail reactions to the news, and we will talk all things New York Jets, as we usually do here on this program. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. Excited to do another one. I guess it's officially the offseason now, as the Super Bowl has come to a close. And going to be honest with you, I was very surprised at the outcome of that game. Not that I am 100% totally stunned that the Eagles won the game. I thought Kansas City would win, but Philadelphia is an incredibly talented roster, and I wouldn't have been absolutely floored if they won the game. The thing that surprises me is that they blew the doors off of them. It wasn't close. The game really wasn't competitive. There were some garbage time points from the Kansas City Chiefs to make it feel closer than what it really was. But that was a good old-fashioned ass kicking at the hands of the Philadelphia Eagles. So credit to them. I think Howie Roseman's done an absolutely stellar job over the last decade or so building that team. They are a perennial contender. They've built out a phenomenal roster, and they are going to be competitive for the foreseeable future. And same thing for Kansas City, right? Like, as long as you have Patrick Mahomes, you're going to be a very competitive team. But some news maybe not completely overshadowed the Super Bowl, but it was a topic of conversation on Super Bowl Sunday. The Jets came to a decision to move on from Aaron Rodgers. There was a lot of reaction. You had some people who were all for it, saying that this was the best move. They had to do it. You had others who were very upset, putting it lightly. There were some pretty epic crash outs on social media. But today we got some new information on the Aaron Rodgers decision, and I think it sheds a little bit of light on why the Jets decided to go this route. Now, the report is coming from Diana Rossini, so some will take that with a grain of salt, and I understand. Connor Hughes, who covers the Jets for SNY, had a similar report, though, on Sunday. So, if you want to see, I want it to come from somewhere else than Rossini. Well, Connor Hughes said something very similar on SNY. But here's the quote from Diana Rossini. I was told that when they had conversations with Aaron Rodgers about what the future would look like if you're going to be a part of this team, they said you're going to have to attend all of training camp and you're not going to do Pat McAfee interviews anymore. Now, I don't know if that was the lone reason and Aaron Rodgers was like, I'm not going to listen to that. Let's just go on our separate ways. That's not what I am saying. We don't know the answer to that. But I kind of like that the Jets pitched it as you're going to do it. Like, you can be here and be a part of our team if you want to be a part of the team and do it on our terms, not on your terms. I think a lot of the last 2 years, no matter how excited we may have been at one point about Aaron Rodgers coming here, I think a lot of it was on Aaron Rodgers' terms, and Aaron Glenn didn't go for that. And that, I think, is really the first step to making this Aaron Glenn's team. I think that's the whole point, right? You brought in Aaron Glenn and Darren Muji, and Muji has the GM title, which is usually higher than the head coach, but I think for Aaron Glenn, he's going to have a lot of say in this roster, and he's going to be the face of the franchise. It's got to be Aaron Glenn's team. And this decision that the Jets made to move on from Aaron Rodgers, I think, is the first step of making it truly Aaron Glenn's team. And, who knows? Maybe, those will argue that they could have coexisted for a year, and then the Jets find their guy in 2026, and that Rodgers could have acted as a bridge. And you know what? I don't think you'll get an argument out of me that Aaron Rodgers, if he repeated the same season he did a year ago, which to me was somewhere between the 18th to 22nd best quarterback in the league most weeks, if he did that again and the Jets defense improved, maybe you win 9 games and sneak into the playoffs. I think that was the best case scenario. But you have to factor in the extra stuff in this. The future cap ramifications, for one. Number two, you have to factor in whether or not he would be willing to learn a Tanner Engstrand offense. When the Jets switched play callers this year, you saw an initial jump in the first game against the Buffalo Bills. When Todd Downing took over, they used a hell of a lot more motion that week than they did in any previous week. And that did not remain through the rest of the season. It was kind of like they had one game of doing it Todd Downing's way. And while I think Downing did some things a little bit different going forward than what Nathaniel Hackett was calling, I still think it was a very heavy Aaron Rodgers influence on that offense. And to be completely frank, it was not a productive enough offense, and they did have talent. Garrett Wilson was here. Breece Hall was here. Tyler Conklin was here. Devontae Adams was here for most of the year, 12 games of the season essentially this year. And that still, unfortunately, was not enough for the New York Jets to have a successful offense. They averaged under 20 points a game with Aaron Rodgers starting 17 games. They lost 12 games this year. They were a 5-12 team. I don't get the people now who are saying like, oh, we're ready to buckle in for a 4-win season because Aaron Rodgers isn't going to be here. What was your expectation with Aaron Rodgers as the quarterback next year? Do you think the Jets were going to go 10-6 or 10-7 with Aaron Rodgers, but if they go to Tyrod Taylor and someone else, they're suddenly a 4-win team? Am I supposed to believe in 2025 that at 41 years old that Aaron Rodgers is the difference, like a 5-win difference on this team? I don't think that's a realistic look. Like in baseball, you have the WAR stat, right? Wins above replacement. We talking Aaron Rodgers with a 5 or 6 WAR in 2024? I don't. Sorry, I don't buy it. I don't. And if you want to go, if you'll give me, or your take is, I think with Tyrod Taylor, they're a 7-win team. With Aaron Rodgers, they're a 9-win team. You want to talk about maybe a 1 or 2 game difference? Okay. I'll hear you out on that. Fine. You can make that case. But I think going from Aaron Rodgers, who again, we'll say quarterback 20, we'll split the difference, to Justin Fields, Jameis Winston, Tyrod Taylor, somewhere between quarterback 28 to 32. Although I think Tyrod has the highest floor of those guys, so I might bump him a touch higher and say, like, I don't know, quarterback 26. I don't think it's a big enough drop off to the point where now you're going to be a 4-win team. If you suddenly thought, like, if you thought the Jets in 2025 were going to be this 10-win team with Rodgers, and then now he's not here, and it's suddenly going to just be, they're going to lose 6 more games than you originally anticipated. Like that, I just don't think is fair or logical. With, the Jets, the previous 2 years to this past year, won 7 games with some combination of Zach Wilson, Mike White, Joe Flacco, Trevor Siemian, and Tim Boyle. Defense was significantly better, as we know, but I mean, I just think that some of the overreaction is a little bit much. And again, if your preference was to keep Rodgers, I don't hate it. I think you can make that case. What the thing that bothers me is the extreme. That like the Jets were primed to be this Super Bowl contending team in 2025 with Aaron Rodgers, and now that he's not here, they're going to be a 4-win team. I just don't think we viewed Aaron Rodgers in the same light. If you're thinking that way, you viewed Aaron Rodgers as a top 10 quarterback in the league last year. My eyes didn't tell me that story. The numbers certainly didn't tell you that story. The yards and the passing touchdowns were good. They were both top 10. They were also second in passing attempts on the year. So some of his passing numbers are a little bit inflated because of the number of attempts that they had on the season. They were second with the fewest rushing attempts. I don't think that's happening in 2025. I think the Jets will run the ball significantly more. And again, with Tanner Engstrand, do we know if Aaron Rodgers was going to buy into what he was selling and what he wanted to do on offense? A team that will likely run the ball a lot more and have an emphasis on creativity and motion. I don't know. And there's no way to know. But this being the unofficial start of the Aaron Glenn era, I think is fine. I look at this and I just don't think it's a huge deal. And that was my reaction video on Sunday. Again, you had a lot of people upset. You had a lot of people celebrating like, oh my God, this is the best thing ever. I'm like, I guess I fall in the middle where it's like, I think it's fine. And I think it's logical that the Jets made that decision. That was my anticipation that the Jets were going to do anyway. So when the news came out, I was like, oh, okay, they're moving on. It's fine. That's pretty much it. So I want to hear from you guys. Let's see what you have to think. We'll go out to Kansas first to get us started on the show. What do you got?
How's it going, Matt? This is Alex Robson calling in from Kansas. Calling in mere minutes after the news broke that Aaron Rodgers will likely not be back next year. Can't say I'm going to miss him. I missed the euphoria of when we first got him, feeling like we finally, took a chance and decided to go all in, and that we were in the position to do that. And the prospect of what, if it worked, it could be. But it didn't work. I feel like since acquiring Aaron Rodgers' organization has gone backwards, and it's time to refresh. New staff, whole lot of new, time for a new quarterback. Time for a new era. Let me know what you think about this, Matt. Let's flash back to 2021 when we drafted Zach Wilson. Does Aaron Glenn go back and try to maybe right that wrong and take the guy maybe we should have taken at pick 2 in Justin Fields?
Maybe.
I can't lie when I say a quarterback room of Justin Fields as our starting quarterback, Tyrod Taylor as the backup, the mentor, and then a QB3 of a Jackson Dart, or my personal favorite option, a Dylan Gabriel in the later rounds of the draft. There's 3 wins, in my opinion. You have Justin Fields, who I think still has a lot of potential in this league. You give him a shot. If he works out, great. Justin Fields is your starting quarterback going forward. If it doesn't work out, you can roll with Tyrod Taylor, maybe down the tail end of the year. And then you can transition and hope that either Gabriel or Dart, whoever you drafted in later rounds, ends up being a franchise quarterback. It just gives you options. That's my personal thoughts. That's what I would like. Justin Fields next year, the quarterback of the Jets, which he should have been, it looks like, since 2021. Let me know what you think, Matt. And as always, go Jets.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for the call. Fields, I think, would potentially be an option for this team unless he's going back to Pittsburgh, but I don't know if he will do that. My thought has been that the Jets may end up being priced out on Justin Fields. I think, he got a pretty cheap deal this last go around, but if he's going to get like $15 million from someone like the Giants or the Raiders to start, I think that would be his preference. But you're on the right track, I think, with adding another veteran in this room. It can't just be Tyrod Taylor and Jordan Travis. That is not anywhere close to being a good enough quarterback room in 2025. It's just flat out not. I don't love this quarterback class enough to be like gung-ho about, you got to take this guy in the mid-rounds and he's going to be the answer, maybe. If the Jets happen to like Jackson Dart or Dylan Gabriel or Will Howard or whoever else, and they want to do that and end up move on from Jordan Travis, okay, that's fine. I'm not holding out a ton of hope that Jordan Travis is going to be some long-term answer here. He hasn't played football in a year and a half, going on 2 years. I think it's going to be Tyrod and some veteran here, and they'll have to make a move for their franchise guy really in 26. I think 2025 is going to be a year of trying to hold down the fort, establish what you're trying to do, and improve on a 5-win season. It's not easy, but I think that's going to be what the path is. And I'm not sold that Justin Fields beats out Tyrod Taylor in a quarterback competition. Maybe he does, but I would prefer Tyrod in that one. Let's go out to Peter, calling in from the beautiful Hudson Valley.
Hey, Matt. It's Peter calling from the beautiful Hudson Valley. Just after the Super Bowl has concluded. Game over. Season over. Time to win the offseason. unbelievable to see the Eagles take down the Chiefs so handily. But, as the old saying goes, defense wins championships, and we can all laugh at the Dolphins for letting go of Vic Fangio because that defense was something. Side note, I don't think Bryce Huff was even active for the game, and I don't understand how Fangio couldn't have used Huff in that defense the way it seemed to play in this game and all throughout their season. So maybe he shakes free. You never know. But anyway, at least we won't have to suffer the insufferable of a three-peat Chiefs who wanted to go for possible four-peat if they had won that one. So anyway, the news of the day, of course, came out earlier that the Jets wanted to move on from Aaron Rodgers. So it sounds like Rodgers and Davante Adams will no longer be Jets. My first thought was, well, maybe they could trade him to some team who needs a 41-year-old quarterback and a mid-wide receiver to kind of put them over the top. But then what team out there fits that bill? I don't think anyone does.
No.
So it's probably going to be a cut for one for Rodgers and a trade for the other for Adams somewhere, free up the cap space, because as I think Rich Cimini's report came out, that if Rodgers had stayed in 2025 and they had not renegotiated his contract, his dead cap hit in 2026 would have been over $60 million.
Correct.
And that would have been kind of untenable. So it's something that I had wanted for a while to move on from Rodgers. Just, I guess we'll have to see how things go. I don't think they'll obviously tank necessarily in 2025, but if you can bridge again with some other veteran and Tyrod Taylor and start to develop Travis, we'll see how things go. I'm still optimistic. I want to see the Jets round out the coaching staff and go from there. Any thoughts on the Super Bowl? Let us know in this week's Just Jets. And as always, let's go.
Thank you, Peter. I think something on the Super Bowl before I comment on your Aaron Rodgers stuff that you added, and I agree with your Rodgers stuff, but on the Super Bowl, I think it showed how important it is to have a good defensive line, and the Jets completely dismantling theirs and being a skeleton crew on their defensive line in 2025 really, really hurt them. So I would look for them to add another edge rusher, and I would also look for them to add probably two more bodies on the interior defensive line to play with Quinnen Williams. They have a good start. I think Will McDonald, Jermaine Johnson, Quinnen Williams is, you're starting to get there, and the Jermaine Johnson injury obviously hurt them last year. But they need to be able to get home with four. And I think that's important for them to build out going forward, to be competitive. On the Aaron Rodgers front, I think you're just cutting him. I don't think anyone's trading for him. Maybe you could send Davante Adams elsewhere via trade. It wouldn't shock me if they also just had to cut him, because I think teams around the league will realize that the Jets' hand is forced, that he doesn't want to be there, so they might just wait him out. Be like, we know that you're going to cut him, so why are we going to give up a draft pick? Unless they want to guarantee that they get him, and that would be like a late round pick, I would think. But I would say it's probably more likely than not both end up getting cut, which is unfortunate. I'm bummed that it didn't work out, but it didn't. You cut your losses, you don't double down on it, and you try to get better going down the line here. I think it's going to be with Tyrod and a veteran quarterback. Let's go out to Jerome in Savannah. This is more like it from Jerome.
Matt O'Leary, thank you so much for taking my call. This is Jerome from Savannah. I am driving home from North Carolina after spending the weekend with my family I haven't seen in over a year. And we culminated that by watching the Kansas City Chiefs, how silly of me, get forcibly penetrated on live television by an Eagles team that everybody hates. There are times you root for the villain. Sometimes you gotta root for Darth Vader to plow through a bunch of rebels. But anyway, what were the layers of icing? I mean, not just the icing on the cake, but the layers of icing on this cake. The memeable Samuel L. Jackson in an Uncle Sam uniform. I shall cherish that image always.
That was cool. I enjoyed it.
Just the fact that we didn't have to see her very often. And what was the final, creamy morsel? Ding dong, the bitch is dead. Aaron Rodgers is gone. Burns the Scourge, baby! Woo! You know, you've got to think about the future. You can't just assume that one player is going to magically correct all the things wrong with your franchise. And look, this is a step towards legitimacy. This is a step towards, quite frankly, just a new era. And maybe I'm sounding like too much of a starry-eyed fanboy here. But I think Moogie and AG have already shown their chops, have already shown that they have a plan. And quite frankly, if you look at a 42-year-old quarterback with a bad Achilles who can't move and tell me that he's your best option, well, then you obviously didn't watch the season, and you can't... I mean, is Justin Fields not capable of winning 5 games? I know that's just one example, but that's the example I'm given. Even if the Jets don't draft a quarterback in the later rounds, I still think moving on from A-Rod was a great idea. And it was a wonderful weekend, and I hope everybody had as much fun as I did. Matt, thank you so much for taking my call. I'll talk to you later.
Absolutely. I appreciate you calling in. Obviously, you wanted him to move on. You wanted to move on. And I think that was the right decision that the Jets made here. And I don't think you're being a fanboy, because I think it's important for Aaron Glenn to come in here, right? Like, you hired Aaron Glenn to be a leader and a culture guy. Let him do it from the beginning. And if you bought into Aaron Glenn and what he was selling, and now are out on him 2 weeks later because he made a decision that you didn't like at the quarterback, it feels a little disingenuous to me personally. But who knows? Maybe you guys disagree. Let's go to Max. Max wanted to keep Aaron Rodgers, so this will be a different perspective.
Hi, this is Max calling in from New Jersey, and let's talk about the Aaron Rodgers situation. So before we start off, good Super Bowl game yesterday. You know, Eagles won, and then, you know, it was crazy around where I went to college in Glassboro. It was crazy with, like, all the post-game, everyone celebrating the Eagles. You know, good times, you know. Hopefully this happens to the Jets, like, soon enough. You know, we win the Super Bowl, you know. It'll be a nice little celebration. But sorry for the interruption. Let's talk about our main topic, the Aaron Rodgers situation. So there have been reports that Aaron Rodgers is unlikely to come back. I think the Jets are making a big mistake. And the reason why I think the Jets are making a big mistake is which quarterback is going to save us next season? Because Aaron Rodgers had the best quarterback play the Jets had. You know, a lot of these fans are like, oh, my God, I don't want Aaron Rodgers back. He was bad. But he had the best quarterback season. Zach Wilson was a horrible quarterback. And then the free agency quarterback class, Jameis Winston, he's very inaccurate quarterback. He either has, like, a good game or he has, like, a 5-interception game. Kirk Cousins is really old and washed. Russell Wilson, the last time he was good was on the Seahawks in 2021. He blames the Steelers for the late season class, more like it was him. Justin Fields is really Zach Wilson with legs. I feel like the best thing to do is tank in 2025 and look to the 2026 quarterback class, because the 2025 quarterback class is terrible. Shador Sanders and Cam Ward are the only good quarterbacks. Quinn Ewers is not really a good quarterback, in my opinion. If we draft Jalen Milroe is more of a running back than a quarterback. I feel like we need to tank with start Tyrod, and then we should tank for 2026 because, you know, Arch Manning could come out, Nico Amalava will come out, and Drew Aller will come out. What's your thoughts on this? And go Jets.
Yeah, I don't look at this season as a tank season for the Jets. I mean, for instance, I know Quinnen Williams had a reaction that he took down, and I'm glad that he did take it down because I don't think it helps anyone to go on Twitter and voice for a player to publicly voice their frustrations. You do whatever you got to do behind the scenes, fine. But I think the Jets need to put a stop to that. I've called the Jets very chronically online for a while. And that's the new age generation of player too. So, you know, some of that is, I can't put a stop to it, and there will always be that to an extent. And I think eventually I'll just have to learn to deal with it. But they won 5 games with Aaron Rodgers last year. And I'm hoping that coaching and the defense improves, but I don't know, maybe don't win 5 games and you won't move on. You wouldn't have to move on from your quarterback. If the team performed as they were expected to, they wouldn't be in this situation. So I get it. Like, you moved on from, on paper, probably like one of your better options, someone who could maybe be a top 20 quarterback for you. But I don't think it's an automatic lock that the Jets are going to be tanking and be like picking number 1 overall next year. I don't view 2025 that way. Travis from Ohio, what do you got?
Hey, Matt!
What's up, man?
Travis from Ohio. Long-time listener, first-time caller. In a while. Anyway. Hey, been listening to all your content. Couldn't bring myself to come on and badmouth the team any more than anybody else did, or
That's
did
fine.
better than I could. So, just a couple of things, like Super Bowl. Actually happy for Mekhi Becton and Bryce Huff. They got rings. They weren't going to do it here.
Braden Mann, too.
Even
Can't
if
forget
we
him.
extended them, they weren't going to do it here. So, like, I like them enough as Jets where I'm not going to shit on them as I did, the running back, Le'Veon Bell, and wide receiver. They caught the stupid touchdown for the win last year. I've tried to erase them out of my mind. That's how little I think of them and want them in
Fair.
rent free in my headspace, you know?
Fair. Totally fair.
Anyway, on to number 2. Rodgers, moving on from him, like, the big fear, like, it makes all the sense in the world because you're saving all that money, drama, roster spot, flexibility, and plus, like, the big fear is, oh, he goes to Minnesota or somebody else and blows up the world. How's he going to do that? He's going to be 42. We gave him everything he wanted here.
Good point.
And he's an enigma. He's not going to listen to anybody else. You know, he knows better. So, I'm just saying, I don't see it happening. I could see him having a better season than this year, but not top 10, top 12, maybe not even top 15. We saw he was washed. I love the dude, and just like I love you and Mrs. Wilson, even though she left us too. So, anyway, go Jets. It's going to be a sock-ass rebuild. Love you, buddy. Bye.
Thank you, Travis. Always makes my day when we get a Travis call. Always brings a smile to my face, makes me laugh. Glad that you called back in. And I think you brought up a really good point with Aaron Rodgers in that they gave him the things that he wanted. Nathaniel Hackett was here. Alan Lazard, Devontae Adams were here. They ran the offense his way. And they won 5 games. They averaged under 20 points per game. It didn't work out, and they moved on. And frankly, I don't blame them for it. And I don't think Travis does either. I think it's totally fair. PG, what do you got, buddy?
Hello, Matt O'Leary. PG from Long Island here. Thank you as always for taking my call. I want to kind of talk about a discussion you had at last week's podcast, and that was about hiring the best candidate. I think it's very important, whether you're a football team or a private company, just as an organization, to hire the best candidate. The Rooney Rule, Great Bang, puts the minority candidates as, giving them an opportunity. But again, when for every reason you don't hire the best candidate, you end up with somebody like Nate Hackett. So
Nepotism.
I think the Jets, with their coaching staff this year, very happy with it. And I'm pretty sure that the brass really just looked at the quality of the candidates, and I think we have a bunch of very good ones. So again, you don't want to force the issue, pass on the best candidate, and get Nate Hackett. Second thing I want to talk about is the Rick Spielman hire. I think it's tremendous.
Me too.
You were probably the first one I heard who had actually the idea that that's something they should do. Think about if you're Muji right now and you have a situation you've never run into before, and you're able to pick up the phone and bounce that off Rick Spielman with all his experience. I think it's a tremendous hire. I think it's going to really help the Jets. Last thing I want to talk about is Aaron Rodgers. You know, I agree with the decision to let him go. If they had kept him, we would have been happy with that because they would have had their reasons. But what I like the best is the fact that they were decisive. They made the decision, flew him in, let him know the deal, said, sorry, Aaron, you're out, and we're going to move on. And what I like about it is no drama, no let it linger. As an organization, the new brass came in, made the decision, and I think that's a very positive for this regime going forward, being able to do that. And, you know, I think it bodes well for the future. Anyway, Matt O'Leary, I'd like to get your thoughts on that. And once again, as always, go Jets.
Great points, as always, PG. Couple thoughts. I like that you brought up the no drama. Moving on or making the decision this early in the offseason, literally on the first day available, right? Super Bowl's the end of the 24 season. It had to happen. I didn't want this to linger on into free agency and then by the draft and, oh, well, you know, Tyrod's here, but Aaron Rodgers, you know, he might decide to play in July and maybe he'll come back and join him in August. Like, I just come in, make your decision, move forward. I think that's what the Jets are doing, and I'm going to give them credit. I don't always give the Jets credit. I feel like I'm pretty fair. If they do something that I view as smart, I will say it. If they do something that I view that is not smart, I will also say it. Speaking of smart things that they did, adding Rick Spielman in an advisory role, a similar role that his brother Chris Spielman is in with the Detroit Lions, is really smart. It's worked well for them in Detroit. He did a good job in Minnesota. He was there for a long time, and they were a competitive team. And he's not the one making the decisions that the GM and the coach are, but they'll have that person, that veteran senior person that they can rely on. And I think the previous regime did not have that, and that's a part of the reason. Not the only, but a part of the reason why they were not successful. We'll close with Jake from Jersey, and he's got an outside-the-box idea at quarterback.
Hey, what's up, Matt? Jake from Jersey. I actually called in right before I listened to your last week's Just podcast, and I talked about, drafting Genty, just seeing what your thoughts were on that and trading Breece Hall. But besides that, you can ignore that because you went over it in that podcast. But anyway, I was just going to say, what would you think about adding, like, a quarterback, say, like Joe Milton from, is Joe Milton? Yeah. I think it's Joe. Yep. Anyway, Milton played for Tennessee and then plays for Pats now as a backup. When he did play a little bit, not saying that he's got a bunch of experience or anything, just seems like he would be a decent person to take a shot on, to add to this QB competition between Taylor, Travis, and it'd be Milton. I think he's got an insanely strong arm and some pretty good athletic ability. Be somebody that'd be interesting to add to the mix, and I heard that Patriots would be looking to move him, given that I guess that game he played, his stock is up a little bit. But what do you think on that? And who are some other quarterbacks you think we could add to the mix? Not in the draft. Obviously, there'll probably be a guy or two in the draft later. I'm hoping they don't trade up for somebody, honestly. But we'll see what happens. Yeah, just let me know who you think backup-wise, young backups who you think would be good to add to the mix and what you think Joe Milton. Go Jets.
So that's interesting. I haven't really heard anyone bring him up. I'll make a comparison. So a lot of people have made the connection of Hendon Hooker. Similar situation, was drafted last year. So not the 24 draft, the 23 draft by the Detroit Lions. And some have brought up the idea of trading a late round pick to bring in Hendon Hooker. And I think this would be a comparable situation. And of the two, I'd much rather go for Joe Milton than Hendon Hooker. Hooker, like Jordan Travis, suffered a really bad injury and was unavailable his rookie year. It gives me some pause that they brought in Teddy Bridgewater off the street to back up Jared Goff in the playoffs, and that they didn't trust Hendon Hooker to be the backup. He was inactive for that game, and it was Bridgewater who was the backup. So I think that's something that makes me go, maybe they've seen something in Detroit where they don't buy into it. And I don't know if it would work here. Milton has a massive arm. He can move. He would be exciting. I don't know if he has starting caliber potential, but it would be fun. And I don't think it would cost you a whole lot to get him. It would be more exciting than bringing in like a Kirk Cousins or Derek Carr, I think, anyway. So I don't hate it. I don't hate that idea. Good call out. That's going to do it for me on this episode, guys. Make sure to subscribe if you're new wherever you get the show, and I'll catch you next time.